I don't know if you've ever had a sibling who could turn an innocent game of Monopoly into a full-blown federal investigation, but I do. His name is Linus, and he has spent our entire lives perfecting the fine art of getting me into trouble. It started small when we were kids, putting my hand in the cookie jar just as Mom walked in, accidentally writing my name on the wall in marker, blaming me for a broken window he threw a baseball through. But as we got older, his schemes became more elaborate. The worst one? The time he tried to frame me for stealing $1,000. It all began on an average Friday afternoon. Mom and Dad were out for the weekend visiting relatives, leaving us with a house that had just enough freedom to be dangerous. I was lounging on the couch, half watching TV, half texting my best friend, when Linus plopped down next to me with his signature grin, the one that meant trouble. "So," he said, stretching out dramatically. "How's my dear, innocent sibling doing today?" "Better before you sat down," I muttered. He ignored my jab. "How would you like to make a little extra cash?" I narrowed my eyes. "I'd like it a lot. But I'd also like to not end up in a federal prison." "Wow, the trust issues," he said, clutching his chest in fake pain. "Look, it's simple. Our neighbor, Mr. Corbin, is selling some old junk from his garage. There's this vintage watch, could be worth thousands. He doesn't know that, but I do." I sighed. "And what does this have to do with me?" He smirked. "We pool our money, buy it for cheap, flip it online, and boom, profit." It almost sounded reasonable. Almost. Except I had known Linus long enough to recognize that look in his eyes. The one that meant there was a second part to this plan that I wouldn't like. "What's the catch?" I asked. "Well," he shifted uncomfortably. "I need you to front the money." I scoffed. "Of course you do. How much?" "Only 1,000. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my own breath. "Yeah, let me just go grab the $1,000 I keep under my bed for emergencies." Linus rolled his eyes. "Come on, we can get it back easy. I just need a little startup capital." I stood up. Hard pass. And that should have been the end of it. But Linus? He doesn't give up that easily. That night, while I was sleeping, he set his grand plan in motion. I woke up the next morning to a gut-dropping text from Mom. "Why would you take money from your brother? Call me now." My heart started pounding. I rushed downstairs to find Linus sitting at the kitchen table, looking way too smug. "What did you do?" I demanded. "Oh, relax," he said, stirring his cereal like he hadn't just ruined my life. "It's just a little misunderstanding." Misunderstanding? That's when I saw the envelope on the table. Inside it was a handwritten IOU. Signed by me. Except, I never wrote it. "You forged my name?" I hissed. "Allegedly," he said with a grin. I groaned. "What does this even say?" Linus took another bite of cereal. "Basically, you borrowed $1,000 from me and promised to pay it back by Monday. I figured, just in case you changed your mind about the investment opportunity." I was going to strangle him. But first, I needed to figure out how to get out of this mess. I stared at Linus, my brain scrambling for some way out of this. I had never borrowed a cent from him, much less $1,000. But here I was, waking up to accusations like I was the lead suspect in a high-stakes crime thriller. "Why?" I finally asked, gripping the IOU like it might burst into flames in my hands. Linus shrugged. "Honestly? I just thought it'd be easier this way." "Easier?" My voice went up an octave. "What part of forging my name and framing me for theft is easy? You weren't exactly jumping at the investment opportunity, and I needed to act fast." He stretched, completely unbothered. "I figured if Mom and Dad thought you already took the money, you'd just go along with it." My jaw dropped. That is the stupidest. Before I could finish, my phone buzzed. "Mom." Again. I groaned and answered. "I didn't take Linus's money." "Well, he says you did." "Then he's lying." I snapped. There was a heavy pause on the other end. "Sweetheart, just tell me the truth. If you needed the money, we could have figured something out instead of you sneaking around and taking it." I gritted my teeth. Linus had done it. He had played the poor me, betrayed by my own sibling, act so well that even our own mother was ready to believe him over me. Mom, I said slowly, I never took anything from Linus. He forged my name on this stupid IOU. Why would he do that? I don't know. I exploded, throwing my hands in the air. Maybe because he's the human embodiment of chaos? Linus gave me a hurt expression, like I had just accused him of puppy smuggling. Wow. Harsh. Mom sighed. Look, I don't want to fight about this over the phone. Just, both of you stay put. Your dad and I will deal with this when we get back tomorrow. I wanted to protest, but she had already hung up. Linus beamed at me. So, you are staying put. That's good to know. I glared at him. What are you talking about? Oh, just that you won't be rushing off to do anything stupid, like, I don't know, trying to clear your name or something. I grabbed the IOU and held it up. This is fraud. He waved a hand. Fraud is such a strong word. You literally faked a legal document. Linus shrugged. Semantics. I had two options. 1, wait for Mom and Dad to come back, plead my case, and hope they'd believe me. 2, find a way to prove Linus was lying before they got home. Guess which one I chose? The counterattack. If there was one thing I had learned from growing up with Linus, it was that he always left a trail. He was a genius at coming up with plans, but he was awful at covering his tracks. And if he had gone through the trouble of faking my signature, then somewhere, he had the real evidence. I started in the most obvious place, his room. While he was downstairs, probably patting himself on the back for pulling off the greatest con of his life, I slipped into his disaster zone of a bedroom. The floor was a war zone of clothes, snack wrappers, and abandoned notebooks filled with half-baked ideas. I carefully picked my way across, searching his desk first. Nothing. I checked his drawers. Still nothing. Then I noticed his backpack sitting by the door. Jackpot. I unzipped it and, right on top, there was a crumpled sheet of paper. My eyes scanned the writing, my heart skipping a beat. It was another IOU. This one wasn't forged. It was his practice version. There were several attempts at copying my signature, each one looking slightly more like the real thing. Some were too wobbly, some were too neat, but the last one? A perfect match. I took a picture of the paper with my phone, then carefully put everything back exactly the way I found it. When I walked back into the kitchen, Linus was casually sipping a soda like he hadn't just framed his only sibling for financial ruin. You look smug, he commented. Oh, just thinking about how easy it's going to be to prove you lied. His smirk twitched. Oh. I held up my phone and showed him the picture. You're really bad at hiding your crimes. For the first time, I saw something that looked like actual panic on his face. Where did you? Your backpack, I said cheerfully. You might want to work on your security measures. Linus paled. Okay, fine. Maybe I did forge your name. Maybe? Definitely, he admitted quickly. But in my defense, I thought you'd come around to my side before it ever became an issue. I pinched the bridge of my nose. You thought I'd come around to being framed for stealing $1,000? Linus winced. Okay, when you put it like that, it sounds bad. It is bad. He rubbed the back of his neck. Look, I'll fix it, okay? How? I don't know yet. But I'll come up with something. I crossed my arms. You have 1 hour to undo this, or I'm texting Mom and Dad everything. Linus gulped. 1 hour? 1 hour. Okay. He nodded quickly. Yeah. I can fix this. He had no idea how. And honestly? Neither did I. But Linus was about to find out that getting into trouble was easy. Getting out of it? That was a whole different story. Linus sat at the kitchen table, staring at the ceiling like divine intervention was going to drop a solution into his lap. I, on the other hand, had my phone in hand, ready to text Mom and Dad the evidence. You have 57 minutes left, I reminded him, watching him squirm. Yeah, he muttered. No pressure or anything. I folded my arms. You do realize there's no easy way out of this, right? The only thing you can do is come clean. Linus made a face like I had just suggested he eat glass. Come clean? Yes. You know, admit you forged my name, tell them I never took your money, and maybe, just maybe, they won't disown you. He leaned back in his chair and groaned. There's gotta be a better way. There isn't. There has to be. Linus. I gave him my best. I am done with your nonsense glare. You committed fraud. This isn't some prank where you can just blame it on the dog and get away with it. Linus let out a long sigh, rubbing his temples. Okay. Fine. Let's say I do come clean. What's stopping them from grounding me for life? You deserve to be grounded for life. He groaned again. Not helping. I shook my head. You don't have many options here. Either you confess now, or you confess when they find out anyway, because trust me, they will find out. Linus tapped his fingers on the table, thinking. His brain was working at full speed, probably trying to figure out some ridiculous scheme to wriggle out of this. Okay, he finally said. I'll tell them. I blinked. Wait. Really? Yeah. He sighed. But we have to do it right. I narrowed my eyes. Define right. Well, if I just tell them, they'll be mad. But if I make them appreciate my honesty, he pointed at me. We soften the blow. I sat down across from him. Linus, buddy, brother dearest. You framed me for theft. There is no way to soften the blow. Sure there is, he said. We just need to make it look like I'm a changed man by the time they get home. I groaned. This isn't a movie. You can't just have a redemption arc in 24 hours and expect them to forgive you. Maybe not, he said. But I can try. The redemption plan. Linus's grand strategy boiled down to 3 things. Fixing the mess he made. Sucking up to mom and dad. Making me look like the better sibling in comparison. I was fully on board with number 1. The other 2? Suspicious. Step 1 was easy. He grabbed his phone and texted mom. Linus, hey, so, funny story. I may have exaggerated a little. Turns out, dear sibling never took my money after all. My bad. Huh. Mom responded almost immediately. Mom, what do you mean, my bad? Linus, it was a misunderstanding. I'll explain when you get home. I stared at the screen. You call forging my signature a misunderstanding? It's all about the wording, Linus said, typing. Linus, the good news is, everything's fine now. No need to worry. Enjoy your trip. Mom didn't respond right away, which meant she was either very confused or very mad. That was the worst confession I've ever seen, I muttered. Relax, Linus said. Now that she thinks it was just a silly mistake, I just have to play the part of the good son when they get home. That was where step 2 of his plan came in. Linus, the human tornado of chaos, spent the next few hours cleaning the house. He vacuumed. He did the dishes. He even, brace yourself, folded laundry. It was unnatural. What's your endgame? I asked, watching him fluff the couch pillows like a Stepford wife. He gave me a too innocent smile. Just laying the groundwork. For what? For the inevitable moment when they find out exactly how bad this was. There it was. Linus's whole plan was to build up goodwill before mom and dad realized how deep this rabbit hole went. It was almost impressive. Almost. The moment of truth. By the time mom and dad walked through the door, Linus had transformed himself into the perfect child. Mom barely got 2 steps inside before he rushed over with a beaming smile. Welcome home. How was your trip? You look fantastic, by the way. Did you do something different with your hair? Dad narrowed his eyes. What did you do? Linus gasped. Why do you assume I did something? Mom crossed her arms. Because the last time you greeted us this enthusiastically, you had a C- on your report card. Okay, Linus said, but this is different. I may have made a tiny mistake. I snorted. Tiny? Mom sighed. Just tell us. Linus took a deep breath. So, you remember that whole, borrowed money, thing? Turns out, I might have, faked the whole thing. Mom blinked. Dad frowned. You what? Mom said slowly. Linus held up his hands. In my defense, I thought it was a good idea at the time. Dad pinched the bridge of his nose. Linus. Mom turned to me. And you knew about this? I held up my phone and showed her the picture of the forged IOU. I found this in his backpack. Linus's fake grin faltered. So we're going with full honesty now. Mom slowly turned back to Linus. You forged your sibling's name? You lied to us? Linus swallowed. Yes. Dad's face darkened. You lied about money? Linus started sweating. Technically. No, technically, Dad cut him off. You committed fraud, Linus. Linus laughed nervously. Let's not throw around words like fraud so lightly. It's literally fraud, I pointed out. Mom and Dad exchanged a long look. Then Mom took a deep breath and said, You're grounded. Linus sighed in relief. Okay, fair. For 3 months. His jaw dropped. Wait, what? That's... Dad held up a hand. And you'll be paying your sibling actual money for trying to frame them. Linus groaned. Fine. Mom narrowed her eyes. Anne. Linus froze. There's more? Mom smiled sweetly. Since you clearly have too much free time to cook up schemes, you'll be spending the next few weeks helping out at Grandma's house. Linus paled. Not Grandma's house. Oh, yes, Dad confirmed. She's been wanting to repaint her fence, and since you seem so creative, we figured you'd be the perfect person to help. Linus turned to me. You enjoy seeing me suffer, don't you? I grinned. You tried to frame me for theft. Consider this karma. Linus groaned. This is the worst day of my life. But honestly? It was probably the best one of mine. Linus sat at the kitchen table, wallowing in his misery as he pushed his mashed potatoes around his plate. It had been a full 24 hours since his sentencing, and he was already acting like he was serving time in Alcatraz. You know, he mumbled, I bet they treat prisoners better than this. I snorted. Prisoners don't get to sleep in their own bed and eat Mom's cooking. Prisoners don't have to repaint Grandma's fence for free, he grumbled. Mom gave him a pointed look. Maybe you should have thought about that before you committed fraud. Linus groaned dramatically and dropped his head onto the table. How long are we going to keep calling it fraud? Dad, who had been reading the newspaper, lowered it just enough to raise an eyebrow at him. Until you fully grasp how insanely stupid that was. Linus huffed. Okay. Lesson learned. I leaned back in my chair, grinning. Oh no, you haven't learned your lesson yet. Linus lifted his head, eyes narrowing suspiciously. What's that supposed to mean? I turned to Mom and Dad. Has he told Grandma he's coming over yet? Linus's face went pale. Mom smiled sweetly. No, but we're calling her after dinner. Linus slowly turned to me. You wouldn't. I pulled out my phone and held it up like a game show host presenting a prize. Oh, but I would. Grandma adored Linus, too much, in my opinion. But she was also an exhausting woman with the energy of a toddler on a sugar high. She'd keep him busy from sunrise to sunset with way more than just painting her fence. Linus lunged for my phone, but I dodged easily. You are evil, he groaned. I shrugged. You framed me for theft. This is just justice. Mom finished her dinner and wiped her mouth with a napkin before grabbing the house phone. Well, no time like the present. Linus buried his face in his hands as she dialed. Hi, Mom, she chirped. Guess what? Linus is going to come help you out for the next few weekends. I could hear Grandma's delighted shriek from across the room. Are you sure? She asked excitedly. Because I do need help organizing my attic. And repainting my fence. And sorting through my old clothes for donation. Oh. And I was thinking of learning how to use that new video chat thing. Linus groaned like he was physically in pain. Mom covered the receiver with her hand and whispered, You'll be teaching her how to use technology, by the way. Linus banged his forehead on the table. I had never been prouder of my parents. The road to redemption, sort of. The first weekend at Grandma's house was a disaster. By Monday, Linus came home looking exhausted, covered in paint and mysterious glitter. What happened to you? I asked, biting back a laugh. Linus dropped onto the couch, groaning. Do you have any idea how much junk Grandma keeps in her attic? I smirked. Let me guess, she made you go through all of it? Linus nodded. It was never-ending. Every time I thought we were done, she'd pull out another box and start telling me the entire history of every item inside. I cackled. Oh, I love this for you. Linus scowled. It gets worse. Oh, do tell. She made me model her old coats to see which ones were still fashionable. I lost it. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off the couch. Please tell me there are pictures. Linus shuddered. I pray to every higher power that there aren't. Unfortunately for him, Mom definitely had pictures. By the end of the third weekend at Grandma's, Linus had officially declared himself a changed man. I have been humbled, he admitted one night. I never want to see another paintbrush again. I never want to hear the words vintage coat again. And if I ever try to frame you for something again, you have my full permission to throw me into the sea. I grinned. You promise? Linus held up a solemn hand. Scout's honor. Mom and Dad were still keeping a close eye on him, but after a few weeks, things did start to return to normal. Linus, begrudgingly, paid me back with actual money, and he even kind of apologized. I may have been a tiny bit of a jerk, he said. I raised an eyebrow. A tiny bit? He sighed. Fine. A lot of a jerk. I held out my hand. Truce? Linus hesitated, then shook my hand. Truce. And just like that, the war was over. Epilogue, lessons learned. By the time our parents lifted Linus's grounding, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. The fence was freshly painted, the attic was organized, and Grandma had finally mastered the art of video calling. Which backfired because now she calls at random hours to talk about baking shows. And Linus? Well, he actually did seem to learn his lesson. For a while. Until 2 months later, when I walked into the living room and found him staring at me with a far too familiar look. No, I said immediately. You don't even know what I'm gonna say, he protested. I grabbed a pillow and threw it at him. I never want to hear the words investment opportunity come out of your mouth ever again. Linus caught the pillow, grinning. Okay. No investments this time. I squinted. Then what is it? Linus smirked. So, how do you feel about cryptocurrency? I launched another pillow at his face. Some things never change. Thank you for watching the video, like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.